Chapter 11. The three of them gathered before the shrine in the innermost cavern. Stepmother solemnly read off the names of their recent ancestors painted on the wooden tablets. Then she uncovered the bowl of rice that Xingxing had prepared. Xingxing straightened in surprise, for Stepmother had added the delicacy of white flesh snake, arranged in graceful swirl on the top of the grains. This was a hearty meal for sure. The ancestors should feel well cared for. Most worthy ancestors, said Stepmother, may you do the favor of listening to my meager voice. Other beliefs are popular today, even here in the North, Buddhism and Taoism. But we are still followers of Kung Fu Zi, and we never forget that. We revere antiquity and the sages, and we place family above all. Wei Ping appeared not to hear anything. It wasn't clear that she knew what was going on. She rolled her head from side to side. She clasped her arms across her chest, and her fingers dug into the flesh of her upper arms. But Xingxing listened closely. Though she'd heard this invocation many times, the gravity of adult voices when they approached the ancestral tomb always surprised her. We seek your assistance, said Stepmother. We long for your protection. Only with it may we avoid misfortune. She bowed her head. Bless the children of Master Wu. Though they be girls and essentially worthless, they are the only descendants of this family. You are such generous and wise ancestors that you look after even the unworthy of us. For this we thank you. Every good thing that happens to us happens because of you. Stepmother left the room. She came back a few moments later, followed by Master Tang's slave boy. She draped one of Wei Ping's arms around the boy's neck and the other around Xingxing's. Wei Ping still gave no indication of knowing what was going on, but when the boy and Xingxing each took one of her legs, she let out a hair-raising yowl, and her face twisted in such excruciating pain that they almost dropped her. We must go as fast as you can manage, said Stepmother, picking up a sack and hobbling on her heels behind them. To Master Wu's grave, and hurry. Father's grave was at the edge of a group of graves, all of the Wu family. Xingxing and the slave boy set Wei Ping on the ground beside the grave. The girl immediately cried out, Stop this pain, father, I beg of you. I beg all of my ancestors. And she collapsed in sobs. Stepmother sank to her knees, then sat back with her feet tucked to the side and arranged her sackcloth around her knees demurely. Forgive the girl for speaking so bluntly. Physical misery makes children forget to show proper respect. She reached into the sack and took out candles. Help me, Xingxing, she said. Being addressed by her right name was a privilege Stepmother afforded Xingxing's only when they performed the rituals of ancestor worship. Xingxing wondered if perhaps Stepmother believed that if she acted kind at these times, Father's ghost wouldn't know how she treated her stepdaughter at other times. Such a belief would be absurdly naive. Spirits could be anywhere at any time. You had but to call out to a spirit of a close ancestor, and it would come to you if it knew where you were. That's why it was so important to speak to the spirits and let them know when you went anywhere unexpected. Together, Stepmother and Xingxing stood the candles in the trough of river sand, dug at the foot of the grave, for just that purpose. Then Stepmother handed Xingxing sticks of incense. Xingxing placed these in the stoneware bowl of sand right in the center of the grave. Stepmother nodded to Master Tang's slave boy. The boy struck the flints and lit a long stick, which he used to light the candles and the incense. The incense smoke rose in spirals, inviting ghosts and spirits. When our daughter spoke today of remarriage, she was terribly mistaken, said Stepmother in a wavering voice. I would commit suicide before I entered another man's bed. See how I wear the sackcloth of mourning? See how mine is unhemmed and ugly? I will wear it a full 3 years, I promise." And then she added more forcefully, "When you died, we did a proper ceremony. We said the right words to help you find your way to your ancestral home. We burned maple and white spruce. We wrapped an ox's horns in bamboo wreaths and sacrificed it. We did everything right, everything." She shook her head. "See, there's no cause for any spirit to hide under our roof and haunt us. All I wanted then, all I want now, is to give you pleasure. And I know that not producing a male heir was a terrible blow for you. But if you will help Wei Ping find a husband, I will take her second son and raise him as though he were yours. He will be accepted as a legitimate heir to your household. I will get her husband to agree to this somehow. I promise you, my dearest husband." Her voice was as humble as that of an orphaned child, and Xing Xing felt like crying for her, who had lost her husband. She felt like crying for Wei Ping, who would lose her second son, and for all of them. She wiped at her running nose. Now stepmother stood. She picked up the sack from the ground and turned it upside down, shaking hard. Paper money fluttered onto the grave. Xing Xing swallowed her surprise. "But Wei Ping didn't. Can we afford all that?" Her broken voice trembled in fear. "Hush," said stepmother. She took a lit candle and set the paper money on fire. Xing Xing shielded her eyes from the smoke. It was better that stepmother burned paper money than left copper coins, she knew, for there were bandits who stooped so low as to rob money left on graves. But while burned money might prove how much stepmother revered the Wu family ancestors, Xing Xing could not understand how it would give pleasure to father's spirit. Xing Xing knew what pleased father the best, out of anyone. She'd been thoughtless not to bring a flower or a feather or a colored pebble, for father enjoyed little objects of beauty, the simpler the better. It was still Xing Xing's job to care for father. Mother had entrusted her with that sacred job. Alas, she had nothing to give him. She was letting him down again, just as she had let him down the day he died. He had fallen into a deep ravine when a boulder gave way under him. He died instantly. Certainly he had no dying words, so Xing Xing had no chance to listen to them as mother had asked her. Nevertheless, something inside her had failed, for a person who is about to die gives off an aura that those around them and love them should be able to sense. Xing Xing had not noticed the aura of death around father that morning. She had noticed only that one gray hair she had spotted on his head before now had a partner. How sad to let him down again, to have empty hands. But, oh, she did have something after all. She pulled on the string that went down the inside of her bodice and surreptitiously fished out the purse Maise had given her. She untied it from the string and caressed the pottery shard with the frog and fish through the silk of the purse. Stepmother and Wei Ping were absorbed in their own thoughts and didn't notice her actions. The slave boy kept sneaking looks at her, but he was no threat, she was sure. She buried the purse in the sand trough. She had owned the lovely shard of pottery for only a matter of hours, but at least she'd always know that father was enjoying it. Besides, she had the real carp as her friend, and that was better by far than any number of carp pictures. Xing Xing warmed at the thought of the fish being her friend. She had never had real friends other than Wei Ping. Girls her age distrusted her because of her education. It seemed they were confused and almost embarrassed by the way her life had taken a turn so differently than theirs. She understood, and so she never lingered, hurrying past them as though intent on important errands. She used to think wistfully of them, but now she had the fish. She bowed one more time, and then bowed before she left. She tilted her cheek towards mother's grave, as if to give and receive a tender touch. That's all mother's grave really needed, for Xing Xing knew that mother's spirit didn't stay in her grave much. Mother's spirit liked to follow Xing Xing around.